evening tutorial, I'm going to teach you how to harvest some of your early crop vegetables. And actually some early crop fruits as well. We live in a very mild climate, so I can plant things at the end of the fall, and then those can be ready to be harvested in spring. So some of these things we've been growing for several years. There are several garden crops that you just plant once and you don't have to plant those every year. Strawberries are one of those. So I'm going to teach you how to harvest strawberries. These strawberries, these are about 3 years old, and if you zoom in here, you can see they are just beautiful strawberries. You just take those between a couple fingers and just pop those off. And so it just is super easy to pick strawberries. I'm not going to pick all the berries that we have, but just to show you how quickly you can pick, strawberries. So you can get them done very fast. So picking berries is super easy. You want to kind of move the leaves around when you're picking these berries. They hide underneath. They're not going to always be easy to spot like those were. So if you kind of move those leaves around, you'll see some other strawberry berries in there ready to be harvested. So those are strawberries. Also in our garden, we have ready to be harvested kohlrabi. Kohlrabi, you want to harvest those when they're about between 2 and 4 inches. And so you just take that kohlrabi out, and then you cut down the roots. And then you just cut those off or break them off. You can break them off pretty easily too. And then you would actually peel this. You can peel some of the harder outer skin off of that. And kohlrabi has a lot of vitamins in it. So kohlrabi, super easy to harvest, great vegetable full of nutrients for your family. We do have several other, these are collards. And collards, you literally just cut the leaves off. So you just cut those off. Collards are great cooked up. A lot of people eat collard greens. And they're, again, one of those cool season crops. This has already bolted. When you see flowers like this, it's called bolting or going to seed. And so it'll send up a long stalk in the middle, and that will have the blooms on it, and then those seeds will drop down to form the new plants for next year. So you just cut the colored leaves off, as many as you want off. And you can cut part of those off, and then more will start to grow for a little bit. Collards are one of those cool season crops though. And the thing with cool season crops is once it gets really hot, they have a tendency to get really buggy. We use an organic gardening method, so I don't spray any chemicals on my garden. And so if it gets super hot and there's a lot of bugs that come, a lot of these things are going to get eaten up before we can eat them as a family. So if you plant them in the fall, if you live in a mild climate, you don't have to deal with the bugs because you can harvest them before a lot of those bugs come on the scene. These aren't ready to be harvested yet, but I wanted to show you how beautiful they are forming. These are my little cauliflower bulbs in there. So you can see that cauliflower. If you're wondering why I have a lot of those flowers in there with them, the flowers are to pollinate. You want to attract those pollinators to the garden. This is one of the areas that I have green onions in. Green onions, you actually plant these as teeny little onion sets, or what they called. These are new ones that I just planted, and you literally just poke your finger in, set that little onion in the ground, and cover it up just a little bit. So these are going to be forming new onions. These are ones that we planted last fall. Some of these I'm letting get bigger to form the bigger onions instead of the green onions. What you have to do though is when they start to form these little flower heads like this, you have to take that and fold it over. If you don't fold that over, where that flower forms, it will send up a really woody, stalky middle, and it won't taste very good down into the onion because that will kind of go down into that onion bulb and make it really tough there in the middle. So you want to pull those and fold them over when you see those. If you leave it, it actually makes a really pretty flower. It's a really white onion flower, but it's not very good for consuming your onions. And then to harvest the little green onions, we'll harvest this little guy. You literally just wiggle them around, and just wiggle them out of the ground there. So, and we use green onions a lot in our cooking. And this is something that's super easy to grow. They don't take very long to grow from the time they are the little teeny onion set to the full onion. These radishes were planted in March, and so they are definitely ready to be harvested. Harvesting radishes is, again, super easy. You literally just wiggle them out of the ground. With radishes, you don't eat the tops, you just eat the bottom. So a lot of times I leave as much dirt as I can in the garden. I'll just set the radish there in my little garden pail, and then I'll keep the tops in the garden or put them in my compost. I'm going to show you something here too. This one's split. So that happens sometimes when they get too much water really fast. So we've had some really crazy rains coming, and so that happens sometimes. It's still edible. It doesn't affect the flavor. It doesn't affect the nutrients. You have to make sure you wash that split really well in there. So those are harvesting radishes. Again, super easy. You just kind of wiggle them out. And then the tops, even though you're not eating them, they don't go to waste because we compost those, and those turn back into dirt for the garden. That is one of my broccoli heads starting to form. So he's not ready to harvest yet. So we're going to give him a few more weeks to get bigger. But we'll have several really nice broccoli heads that are be wonderful. They taste a lot better than the ones you can get in the grocery store. So, and then we have spinach as well. Spinach is one of those things that's super easy to harvest. Again, you literally just cut off the leaves that you want. These are basically the baby spinach leaves, so you just cut off a few of those. This will keep our family in spinach for a while. Again, super easy to harvest. Just cut off what you need of those. Spinach has tons of vitamins. When they're baby leaves like this, they are great in salads. There's actually a really good recipe that a sweet friend of mine gave me years ago that's a spinach strawberry poppy seed salad that is so delicious. And I love the fact that everything I need for it comes out of the garden except for the seasonings. This kale is beautiful, and kale is one of those vegetables, again, you just cut off the leaves that you want. A lot of times I'll start more towards the middle. I've already started harvesting this kale, and a lot of times I take this kind of thick part off when I take it inside, and I'll pitch the thick part out and then eat all the tender leaves of that. Kale is one of those vegetables that we cook with. We put it in soups. You can put it in smoothies. There's lots of different things you can make with kale. And the nice thing about it is it's so easy to harvest. The kids can come out and harvest it. You just want a nice pair of scissors that have a good clean cut. This is our asparagus bed. This bed's about 5 years old, and asparagus is wonderful because once you start your asparagus bed, it will continue growing for decades. Those asparagus roots just continue to get nutrients and continue to produce year after year. You don't have to do anything other than fertilize them and just make sure the soil is good. So when asparagus first pops out of the ground, it looks like this. So this is a beautiful asparagus. And you literally just take those scissors, you cut it off at the ground, and as you cut those, it just makes really, really nice grilled vegetables. Sometimes you can cut them up raw and put them in salads. There's lots of different things you can do. Cream of asparagus soup. The nice thing about asparagus also is some of those, I let them go to seed. I let them form these asparagus ferns, because each one of these little knobs on here will continue to grow, and when that opens up, it will create these beautiful ferns. And I use some of these ferns in my flower arrangements. So I let the ferns absorb some of the energy from the sun to help those asparagus roots get stronger, and then once they have gotten a little bit taller, then I cut those off to put them in with the flowers. But again, asparagus will keep on growing year after year after year. My in-laws have an asparagus patch that I think is about 40 years old. and they don't have to really do much to it other than make sure it's fertilized. So once you plant that, it's one of the few vegetables that just comes back year after year. The thing you need to remember about asparagus is the first year you plant the roots, you're going to see all these beautiful asparagus pop up, and you cannot harvest them the first year. You want all of the energy from the sun going into those leaves and getting those roots really strong. The second year you can lightly harvest. You still want each asparagus root to have a few asparagus ferns that grow up to gather that energy, and then the third year is when you can really start harvesting. This year has been great for our asparagus patch. We've harvested quite a bit out of our patch this year, and it just is producing like gangbusters and producing plenty of little asparagus ferns as well as asparagus for our family. Swiss chard is another one of those vegetables that you just need a good pair of gardening scissors to harvest. So you just cut off, this is called rainbow Swiss. You just cut off those stalks, really high in nutrients. The rainbow Swiss chard has different colors, so this is red. We've also got some of the whiter ones and yellow ones back here. Beautiful, beautiful Swiss chard. And then behind that Swiss chard, these aren't quite ready to harvest yet, but they're actually going to be ready much sooner than I thought they would be. These are my potatoes. You can see here's a little baby potato already forming there. So we'll just cover him back up. Oops, I uncovered another one and I covered him back up. So those are going to be ready very, very soon. Here I planted my potatoes in March. It depends on where you live, what climate you live. I probably could have planted them in February and done well, but we planted them in March and we're going to have them probably by next month. Lettuce is another one of those vegetables that's really easy to harvest. You just need a good pair of gardening scissors. You literally just take that lettuce and cut in the middle and grab that leaf bunch out of the middle. With lettuce, when you take it inside to wash it, you want to pull back these leaves and wash really well, especially where the lettuce is connected to the stalk, because bugs and dirt kind of like to collect in those areas. So just make sure that's washed really well. Lettuce from the garden tastes so wonderful, and it will continue to grow. I've cut those off there in the middle, and they'll continue to grow some new leaves. And so lettuce will start to get bitter if you don't keep it regularly watered, and so if it gets into the heat of the summer, it's not going to do very well. But it's one of those crops that does well in the cooler seasons. Here's some of my red leaf lettuce too. You do the same thing. You just kind of cut that off in the middle, make sure that's washed really well. You'll notice behind the lettuce there's more asparagus, and mixed with the lettuce, this is our secondary asparagus patch. We started that 2 years ago when we had so many new roots that were starting to form. And that happened because as I let some of these asparagus ferns go to seed, it forms these teeny little seeds. Those will get about the size of a pencil eraser, and they'll be red, and then they'll drop down and form new roots. And so when we had several of those, we just moved them back here. So now this is our secondary bed. This is a second year bed, and we have not harvested any of this asparagus. So we're not going to harvest these at all. We let all of these go to ferns. And you'll notice how thin and wispy some of these are too. There's just not a whole lot to them. You know, compare those asparagus to these of the 5-year-old plants, and there's just a huge difference. So that's kind of gardening, harvesting on some of these early season crops. Our garden is not very big. It's not a huge amount of space. And this is all the produce we're harvesting just for today. One year I took weight. I measured every pound of every vegetable that came out of our garden. We had 200 pounds of vegetables that came out of just this gardening space that you're seeing. So it doesn't take a lot of space to feed a lot of people. So find an area in your yard that you can start even a little garden. It's not too late to start tomatoes and green peppers and all sorts of things even this time of year. If you would like to see more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel, like these videos, and share them with your friends. If you would like to learn about other things that I might be able to teach you, just leave a comment in the messages and I'll read through those. Thanks so much and have a great day.